let's talk about the big T. Thanksgiving. The vibes were so off. So I said, screw it. This just did not at all taste super great. Honestly felt a little gross after it. Hi everyone, my name is Mima. I used to be obese. I lost all of the weight through a combination of GLP-1 medication, a whole foods diet, and weightlifting, and now I train as an endurance cyclist. First of all, a big warm welcome to all of my new subscribers. I am so glad you're here and spending your precious time with me. I know time is such an invaluable commodity, so I am really grateful that you guys are here. So many of you guys have come from the last video where I talked about accidentally getting off my GLP-1 medication, which means that this is clearly a topic that is of interest to all of you guys. For those of you guys who are here because you're anxious about getting off the medication or thinking about getting off the medication or will no longer have access to the medication fairly soon, or if you are thinking of going on the medication and you just want to know what it's like being on the other side of having gone through taking the medication and now having to get off it, or if you're one of those folks that are just generally curious about GLP-1 medication and people's experiences on it, this is the space for you. This is the channel for you. I will continue to document my journey as someone who has gotten off of the medication but still lifts weights, trains as an endurance cyclist, eats an 80-20 whole foods diet, and is a generally very busy person with a very busy and sometimes stressful domestic and international travel schedule. If this is your first time on my channel and everything that I've just said resonates with you, I would very much love to have you. Please do click on the subscribe button as well as the notification bell so you don't miss what's next on my journey off the medication and whatever else is in store for me or whatever crazy things I have planned for myself. Now, today we are going to be talking about two events in my life that happened very recently and that are very related to my journey off of GLP-1 medication. About a week and a half ago, I went on my very first trip off the medication. It was short, just a weekend trip to New York City where I saw a good friend, and right after that was Thanksgiving. I do feel that travel and the holidays are oftentimes the big disruptions that people have a lot of anxiety about on their weight loss journeys and also being on this medication. And for me specifically, my work travel schedule was actually a huge contributor to my weight gain back in like the early 2020s, like after things had opened up. This was actually something that we identified in my weight management program like early on, thankfully, and I worked incredibly hard with my dietitian and my psychiatrist to build systems that would make my very intense travel schedule more healthy and less stressful for me so that I wouldn't fall to really bad anxiety and stress management coping mechanisms essentially. But honestly, like being on a GLP-1 actually really helped me make the healthy changes that I needed to make and to build the sustainable habits that I needed to build on my travels, because I wasn't constantly fighting with my body and my brain, and it like gave me that cognitive space to actually make all of the changes and the habits that I needed to make happen, even though it was like in the midst of this very busy and jam-packed schedule. I do have a lot of tips and lessons from sort of like that exercises and all of those steps and changes that I've made to build these habits and these systems. So if anyone wants me to make a video about traveling on GLP-1, like while maintaining a healthy whole foods diet and also like training while having a travel schedule, let me know in the comment section and I'm really happy to make that video. I also already actually have a number of videos that I've already done about some of my recent travel since I started this YouTube channel, like the Philippines and the United Arab Emirates, which I have linked down in the description box below. Also, if you guys have any questions or any comments about, traveling while on GLP-1, healthy habits, that kind of stuff, please feel free to kind of like pop that in the comment section down below. I'm more than happy to answer them, talk about them. Like, this is, again, a space for everyone to kind of discuss this and learn more from each other's experiences. But let's get on to the meat of this video and talk first about my trip to New York City. So I was in New York City the weekend before Thanksgiving, and really that was to see a good friend of mine. Her name is Marie. She and another friend of hers have a podcast called Can You Talk? And they invited me to be a guest on an episode to talk about my GLP-1 journey. I will put the link to the podcast in the description box down below, and when you get the chance, please do check out the episode. Marie asked very, very good questions, and I feel like we went really deep into a lot of the emotional stuff when it comes to taking a GLP-1. For this trip, though, I was a little nervous because it was my first trip off of the GLP-1 medication, but I was actually also kind of ready to test my discipline and sort of the strength of my system. So even though this trip was kind of short, it was a weekend, I thought it was a really good taste and sort of starter for that. It was also really, really helpful that Marie is an incredibly, incredibly supportive friend. She has been so supportive of my journey on GLP-1 medication. So when it was confirmed that this trip was happening, she had asked me hey, what kinds of food do you want to have in my apartment? Like snacks or just food that you want to cook? That kind of made things a lot easier for me, and that kind of support system just generally definitely helps. So I'm really, really super grateful for that. Marie, if you're watching, thank you again for your hospitality. And one of the things now that I actually do when I do have travel is to take a good look at my schedule. I take a look at what's happening for me during the week prior to my travel and the week after that, so I can plan my strength training days, my bike riding sessions, and all of my meals around that schedule. In this case, I took the train up on Friday evening, which meant that my day that Friday kind of went about normally. I went about my strength training session normally. I ate my meals generally the normal times that I ate them. But of course, because I was on the train that evening, I had to schedule my dinner around the train ride. And honestly, especially when you're traveling, scheduling meals is super, super helpful. And it is something that I do more often than not now, even outside of traveling. And that evening train ride, I actually packed my dinner and I packed drinks and some of my protein shakes and protein bars along with that for the weekend. And now actually packing my snacks and drinks is something a system that I have been it's one of the later systems that I'm starting to build now, and it is actually super, super helpful to help you stay on track, but it's not really something I am great at right now, to be honest. I am really, really trying to be better at packing snacks and drinks for me while I'm not just on the road, but if I have an afternoon that I've set aside to run errands, I have tried my very best to have a lunchbox right beside me in the car, because then it keeps me from grabbing a drink from Whole Foods or Safeway or Harris Teeter and a snack from any of these grocery stores, because I have all these snacks at home, especially the fruits. I have a lot of fruits at home, and that's one thing that I like to snack on a lot. So I've been trying my very best to be better at packing snacks with me whenever I am out of the house. And I bought a cute lunchbox. I'll put it up here on the side just to romanticize the art of packing food and drink with me, even if, like I said, it's just an afternoon of running around doing stuff. So still, it is one thing that is a good practice when you're traveling as well, to pack some snacks with you, especially if you know that it's going to be hard for you to meet your protein macros for the day or for 2 days when you're traveling. So having those protein bars with you really come in handy. With that said, let's talk about food and nutrition. This is New York, baby, and you absolutely have to talk about the food when you talk about New York. So a little context is that I go very often to New York for work. Our headquarters is in New York, so I am there pretty regularly every quarter. It's not really a place that I go now to go crazy eating like my favorite foods because I'm there so often. But I do typically enjoy eating in the city. So I did make sure to have a nice dinner that I normally wouldn't have on, like a day-to-day basis. And this was on Saturday night. Marie and I went to a very, very nice restaurant called Kechi Shubi, where we basically had like a majority seafood dinner. It was so lovely. And honestly, that's really because of my genetic high cholesterol. I now eat a primarily pescatarian diet. Typically, whenever I go out to eat, I normally gravitate towards fish and seafood anyway because it can be special. Like there are some really nice seafood dishes at restaurants that I cannot make myself at home. But seafood is also pretty great for protein, and sort of like the protein to calorie ratio for seafood, especially fish, really, really bang for your buck. So one thing I would recommend to folks, do not sleep on fish on your weight loss journeys. Even on GLP-1 medication, do not sleep on fish. It is so full of good fats too. So you are really hitting a lot of macros when you're eating seafood. Plus, just me specifically, I really, really love seafood. If all of the meat products were to disappear, I wouldn't care because I would just love to eat seafood for the rest of my life. Anyway, I know this was a very, very, very quick trip, but we did eat at restaurants, the entire time I was there. We cooked and ate at Marie's apartment for most of our meals. And I do appreciate that, we had access to a kitchen. I had access to a kitchen. So it wasn't that difficult to maintain sort of a whole foods diet while I was there. But I did go into this trip, never mind that it's short, with the same mindset as I do when I go on longer trips and farther trips, which is big main meals, especially breakfast, anchored by whole foods, and making sure for satiety the components of my meal are high protein and high fiber. The only food mistake that I made on this trip was my brunch on Sunday morning on my way back from New York to home. I got a breakfast bagel, lox with cream cheese, capers, and tomatoes. I really don't eat bagels at all anymore. It's not just worth it for me in terms of the macros. It's just also not something that I crave for, really. But because I was in New York and because the new train station actually has some pretty good options where you can get bagels and breakfast sandwiches and all that stuff, I thought, why the hell not? And honestly, it turned out okay. You can see here, I'm gonna put the short video that I took. There was just way too much cream cheese. Look at this baby. I should have honestly asked for a thin layer of cream cheese because this just did not at all taste super great after a while. Honestly felt a little gross after it because I do not eat this much cream cheese. Lesson I definitely learned for the next time, and given that I'm in New York so often, there will be a next time. So noted if I ever want to try this again. I did also work out while I was in New York. I had a day pass for a very, very bougie gym. I wanted to use that day pass before it expired, and I actually fully intended to film my workout while I was there, because when are we ever going to be in a super bougie gym that charges $300, $400 a month? Not me. I only pay $25 for my gym every month, so. But anyway, again, I fully intended to film my workout, but the vibes in this gym, we were so off. They were so off. There were so many people. It was so packed. The spaces were tight and the conditions for filming were just not there. They were not great. And I just didn't want to go through the awkwardness of like having my camera up and stuff like that. So I said, screw it. I'm just going to do my workout and then talk about it later on in the video. But they did have really, really great equipment though. Probably the only pro of going to a gym this expensive is how great their equipment is. And because it was like primarily like a bench press day for me, I loved having like a machine just for bench press. We don't have that in my local gym. And I loved not having to use the Smith machine for my bench presses. I did get a good workout. I've got to say, even if the vibes were off, I kind of just tuned everyone out and just did my own thing. But I still could not help but miss my neighborhood Planet Fitness, which hasn't failed me since I started going to the gym and lifting weights in March. And I also got around 15,000 steps that Saturday, which is actually a little less than what I was expecting, but still over my average. So that kind of checked all of like the boxes for movement for me on that trip. All in all, New York went pretty smoothly. I ate well, I trained, I spent time with a good friend. No guilt, no restriction, just sticking with the fundamentals that have been incredibly invaluable for me while I've been on this journey. Now, let's talk about the big T. Thanksgiving. I know that a lot of people have anxiety around the holidays because of just, how much holidays can be. Like, too much food, too much interaction, too much invasion of privacy from nosy relatives. And usually, when people are uncomfortable, that's when they turn to things like food to find comfort and security from all of these like very, very awkward and uncomfortable interactions and situations. And honestly, like holiday food is so good. And I'm not talking about like the fake holiday food with like all of these like ready to make stuff that you can buy in the supermarkets, like all of these like trashy little Debbie seasonal things. No, I'm talking about like real holiday homemade food. It is so good. Like for my family specifically, holidays is when we break out like the good stuff, the stuff that we don't have lying around the house like on an everyday basis. We get the good charcuterie from the specialty Spanish and Italian stores. We bake my mom's apple pie. There's cookies, there's cake, like all of them homemade, all of them baked by people that we love, and all of these like different side dishes that are so yummy. And it can honestly feel like the worst time of the year to go on a diet because of all of these foods that you don't have access to typically, or people are too lazy to make on like a normal basis throughout the year, right? But what I've done since like getting on GLP-1s and getting off it, and like the sort of practice that I've done while I was on GLP-1, my first holiday season in GLP-1 last year, was to kind of like do basically like a mindset shift where I treat these kinds of days, like the holidays, as just a day of the year, like every other day of the year, but there's just like a small asterisk to this day. And that asterisk just means that something special is popping up today. And usually that something special is like one meal where all of these special foods come out to play, basically. So for me, for this year's Thanksgiving, I woke up at my usual time, 5 a.m. I had my usual breakfast, oatmeal with non-fat milk and some Truvia brown sugar. And I also had a high protein Oikos yogurt. I walked my dog for 2 miles and then I went to the gym and lifted. When I got back to the gym, I had a high protein meal with chicken thighs, jasmine rice, green beans, and black beans. And then I just started preparing all of the foods that I was in charge for Thanksgiving. And that was the side dishes, and I also baked my mom's infamous apple pie. So really, I did not restrict myself before the Thanksgiving meal. I ate normally. I ate what I usually eat. I had my usual routine, and I ate my Thanksgiving meal, and I ate it all right. I had turkey. I had all of the sides. I also had charcuterie beforehand, and then I had a small slice of lemon cake, a small slice of apple pie, and a small piece of chocolate chip cookies. I was full, like for sure, I'm not gonna deny that, but I wasn't stuffed. And because I didn't have an empty stomach before I came to Thanksgiving, I wasn't stuffing my face either. And the next day, things returned to normal. I woke up early, I walked my dog, I went to the gym, and I tracked my food the rest of the day. And honestly, I basically ate leftovers the entire weekend. And since I made the sides, I did weigh them out as I was making them. So it was very easy for me to track the after the Thanksgiving Day dinner with all of my meals. So I had all of the macros, for the leftovers, basically. And honestly, turkey is so good for weight loss because of its protein to calorie ratio. And for me, it's really one of the meats that I love. It's really critical to set yourself up for success, especially during these special asterisk days. By all means, you should enjoy these special foods that don't come around very often, but it's also very important not to treat these days as like a permission slip to abandon everything that you've worked hard for and everything that you've worked so hard to build. One special meal, like a Thanksgiving meal, absolutely does not undo the progress that you've made, just like one healthy meal does not create progress. What matters is building that and returning to your routine after the special asterisk. For me, that's keeping to my morning routine and schedule, my movement, my meals, and keeping my mindset steady was what made my Thanksgiving holiday really joyful and not at all stressful. Because if you look at it, if you have this kind of mindset, at the end of the day, you don't fall off of anything. You just live your life, you enjoyed your family, and you kept moving forward. So I would love to know, how did your holiday go? Did anything surprise you? Tell me how your holiday went. The good, the messy, all of it. Put it down in the comment section down below. If you are navigating life on or off GLP-1s, especially during the holidays, I hope this video gave you a little clarity or comfort, or at least a feeling that you're not alone. If you are on the meds, off the meds, transitioning, whatever it looks like, keep going. Your routine, your movement, your choices will matter more than one meal ever will. If you have any other questions or would just like to talk more about holidays, travel, on or off GLP-1, again, comment section down below, or you can find me on Instagram. Please feel free to DM me. My handle is right here. I am more than happy to chat with you. Thank you so much for joining me today and spending your precious time with me. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, happy riding.